Everybody, thank you for putting some time aside to come to this. This is short and sharp, a half-hour webinar to discuss data catalogs. Obviously, it's a thing of interest in the data governance community. So today we want to talk about a little bit of selection concepts and then adoption. So no matter where you are in that journey, if it's early on and you're thinking about a catalog, or you have a catalog and you want to increase how it's being used and maybe just the fact that it's being used in your organization, that's what this short session is all about. I'm Tim Moon. I'm the managing director and co-founder of DGX Group. And with me, I've got my partner, Chad, who's also co-founder of DGX as well. Let's move on to the next one, Chad.
Yep.
Really quickly, for those of you who don't know anything about DGX, we are data and AI governance consultancy. We provide consulting and advisory services. We also provide training and education in the data governance space. And then we focus a lot on community building. So some of you, I see some of the names here, were able to attend our AI and Data Governance Summit in Sydney earlier this year. We'll be looking to do the same thing in Melbourne in 2026. And this is another kind of community event as well, trying to bring people together and share some tips and tricks. Data governance can be lonely sometimes when you're the only individual in an organization. So connecting and sharing information is what we're trying to foster. Data and AI governance, that's all we do. Again, little intro. My face you have the exact same gear on as your photo. So.
We like blue. All right, next slide.
All right. So this is what we're looking at today, what we're going to be into. So what do you focus on before you get the data catalog? Some things that you should consider that will make it a better process and ensure that you get the right fit. How to choose that catalog, and then driving the adoption that sticks. This is what one of the things that we found in working with a variety of clients can be quite tricky to keep things sticky. I think it might just be you, David. Sorry, we don't have on the spot IT support for that one. And then we're going to go through key lessons learned. Thank you, Rowena. Good to see you. And then Q&A. So feel free to fire away with your questions through the course of it. We want to address as many as we can. However, we'll see what we can get through the course of it. So with that, Chad, I think I'll kick over to you.
Yep, thank you. I'll kick us off. What we wanted to start off with is really talking about it, like when's the best time to get a catalog, and if you do, what are the things you need to think of before you get one. So to me, the catalog, the difference between a good catalog implementation and one that's not successful is that the team is trying to solve real problems that the team are facing. That is, a catalog that is going to be successful are the ones that are going to be solving that burning platform in the team. And so what I'd say is, when is the best time to get a catalog? It's the best time is probably when there's enough pain in the business that putting a catalog in front of them, they're going to use it. It's actually solving something real, something that they're going to use hopefully every day. It's something that's solving something they care about. And I think that's really important. The other thing I'd say too is when you're going in, it requires you going and sitting with these teams, understanding them, talking to them to really understand those problems. And the thing I would say as well is that a catalog may not be always the answer to solve some of these pain points. So you really need to understand what the pain is, and then work out, like, is a catalog actually the right thing to solve? Maybe we just need to fix a process, or maybe we need something else to fix that. So I think going through that exercise and understanding what the pain in the business is really important. So on the screen there are some of the common pain points I see that teams suffer with. So I see these things as like a scaling thing. So you've got a data platform, you're starting to, there's data in there, you've got starting to people use it, they're building dashboards, products in there. Some of these pain points start creeping in. So things I see regularly, or we see regularly, is people can't find data. So your data environment is getting more complex. There's more data in there. It's hard to find. No one knows what's happening with it. And a catalog can definitely help. A catalog can bring all this stuff together. It can be your knowledge base for data. It can be great to onboard new starters in the organization. That's one of the key use cases I love seeing. The other one there is accountability. As an organization gets more complex, you'll have thousands of data objects. You'll have potentially hundreds of data products, hundreds of dashboards. Knowing who owns those dashboards, who are the key SMEs, also who the users, who owns it, are very key. So catalogs can help you connect these objects to dashboards, have owners, and have it really SME. So if someone jumps in, who is the best person should I speak to about this particular data or to get access to something? Data catalogs can help you do that. It can also help you understand where sensitive data is. We're putting a whole bunch of data in this platform, knowing where sensitive data is. Catalogs, a lot of the catalogs today, they come with things out of the box to scan and tag PII. That's great. So if that's one of the use cases that you need, that's great. Another key one there is data quality. So data quality is a big part of a data governance program, really anchors the program. So if your use case for your catalog is data quality, I think that's really great. But a lot of the catalogs today in the market today, they have data quality. They have issues management, things like that. So that's a really good one. And then the final one there is knowing where data comes from. So it's like your lineage use case. So you've got a dashboard. So knowing what the source of that data is what a catalog does. A lot of them come with out-of-the-box lineage, and so it helps you answer that question. The thing I'd say, though, is the difference when your lineage getting used or not is the teams actually have tools that do that today. So you might find that teams have, say, DBT or other tools that they use for that. So I guess the question is your catalog doing a better job? Your catalog needs to be a tool that's solving one of these problems, and the tool that best solves them. Otherwise, you're going to be having people use other tools. So that's a little bit things to think about when first thinking about a catalog and firstly understanding those pain points in the team. The thing to think about for your catalog is really what I call these is kind of like the prerequisites. So the first thing I'll say here is a catalog is not going to solve your governance gaps. So if you don't have a governance framework, you don't have governance at all, slapping in a catalog isn't going to magically solve those. And so the best implementations are where there is some existing governance as a framework. There's roles of responsibilities, there's definitions, there's understanding of data domains in the business, and then you're accelerating some of that work. It's an accelerator for scaling your data governance program. It's trying to do this with you've got no governance in place is a bit of having the cart before the horse. So I definitely recommend when teams come to me to talk about data catalogs, I usually start asking these questions first. So some of these questions is, do you have a good handle on your use cases? So all the stuff I've just spoken about before is, I want to see this understood and documented. You've spoken to all the key people in the organization. You understand their pain, and now you can go out and work out how do we address that pain? What solutions in the market can we get to address that? Does your organization have a governance framework? So when I see catalog implementation, I want to see that the organization has some sort of governance framework in place before they get a catalog. And if you don't, you don't have to have a full-blown 40-page document. Having something that has a high-level view of the data domains, what governance is about in your organization, some of the ownership and the roles in the data roles in your business I think is really key. The other thing to think about also is who is going to be the main users of your catalog. Sometimes I see organizations go forth and try to roll out the catalog to every single person in the organization, and I almost see that almost never works because if you try to make everybody happy at the same time, you may not make anyone happy. And so what I'd say the best approach is to really focus on your power users, kind of like your key users. To me, in the implementations I do, that's usually like the data services team, the analytics teams, now the AI teams, if you've got them, is really focusing on a particular team, and then making sure that the catalog, the first implementation iteration of your catalog, is solving to their problems, and really focusing on that before you roll it out to the rest of your organization. Sitting down and really understanding those personas, I think, is a really important exercise to do. The next thing is to really get a handle of is actually who's gonna maintain this thing, who's gonna product manage this catalog. Is it going to be the data governance team? Also, in terms of curation, who's going to actually go in there and curate it? I know we're all going to want to say we wish AI can curate it all, but there's going to be tasks of validating. If it's AI, there's going to be someone validating the AI. There'll be still need to take information out of people's head and put it in the catalog. So who's going to do that? Now, what I've seen in practice is teams, sometimes I've seen organizations kind of stage gate all the curation to a select group of stewards. I think that's a bad idea. I like the kind of Wikipedia approach where if you know something, chuck it in the catalog. And then I will say that there's probably certain aspects in the catalog you want a bit of governance and process around, like definitions, like definition for customer. You don't want anyone just updating that. So maybe you have a little bit more governance over some things, but then you encourage everyone to contribute to the catalog. And that's a really great way to do it. And then the other thing that's also important is to understand some of the processes in your business. The best way to get your catalog adopted is to embed it into existing processes. So having a handle on some of what those processes are in your business is really key. Examples of that are things like your SDLC process in your data team, in the data engineering or data services. What's the process for them ingesting new assets? How do you embed the catalog and updating the catalog into that process? The job's not done until the catalog's updated. Or if you've got a team that's creating a new dashboard and they want new metrics, do they have that definition agreed and documented somewhere for that definition? So putting these stage gates in and working with your teams to really embed the catalog into your workflow really helps. The other thing is doing it from a project perspective too. Make sure that people have time to do it. It's allocated. There's time to allocate it for them to do as well. That's some of the things that I hope ask teams to really think about before they get a catalog. So now to the fun bit of choosing a catalog. Now, the first thing I'll say here is choosing a catalog can be a little bit tricky. I don't know if you've all seen the data catalog market these days, but it's overwhelming. I've got a good list in that picture there, good list of the catalogs available now, but that's not even all of them. There's still a lot more that are living out in the world, the open source ones. And so knowing what catalog to choose and trying to get under the hood of the marketing speak. If you just read the website of the marketing catalogs, you'll believe that they solve everything and they'll solve all your problems. And so it's really good. What you really need to do is get under the hood and really understand and see these products and a demo or something to understand like what they're actually like to use. Do they actually solve these problems? You really need to get to that level. And so the kind of four-step process that we recommend is on the screen there. So number one, really get a really good handle of your use cases, rank them. What are the nice to haves? What are the must haves? And then when you're going to these vendors and you're going to explore what their services are, make sure you're giving them the use cases. Give them the list of use cases and say, how are you demonstrating that you're going to deliver to these? I want you to show me how you do it. You want to get into the detail with these. And so once you have, I guess, a short list of ones that kind of tick your boxes, get a demo. Get in there, have a look at the product, let them show you exactly how this stuff works, and then you can make a decision. I also recommend get your key users in there too. Now, we spoke about how important users are. They're going to be the ones using this thing. Get your key users in these demos as well. Get them looking at it. And what I'd say is you want to see them excited about, whoa, that's really solving a problem. That's amazing. I wish I I wish we had that now. That's the kind of reaction you want when you see a demo. You don't want people saying, it looks okay. I don't really care. You want to be solving problems. You want people to be excited about this thing. And the third step there is, if you can, get a pilot. Some organizations, catalog vendors now, are doing pilot programs where they let you test it for 3 months or they test it for a year. Make sure you do something like that. Test it out, pilot it out with your users, and make sure that it's actually solving the problems. It's actually working for your organization. And then 4, once you have a catalog, you've implemented it, make sure you track usage. A lot of the times I see usage go up, and then it comes, you do your big launch and you do all that whiz-bang affair, and then it drops down again. The one thing I highly recommend is that you always track your usage. In the catalog implementations I've done, I'm looking at that number by like a hawk, whether it's weekly, whether it's monthly. I want to see the adoption be increasing, or at least be at a stable pace, or at least a good percentage of the data team are actually using this thing every day. And if I'm seeing that change and I'm seeing not people use it, well, that's when it's time to iterate, to do something different, to step in and make a change. And so, anyway, that's to that. Hopefully that's helped. It's going to help you in terms of your process, in terms of choosing a catalog and kind of going through it. So next, I think Tim is going to talk about, once you've got a catalog, how to actually drive adoption in your organization. I'll hand over to Tim.
All right, I've got a new headset here. Can you hear me okay? Because I know before people were saying it was a bit in and out. Thumbs up from Chad. People in chat giving me claps. All right, we're in. Look, that was jam-packed. And I know some of it probably sounds, standard kind of catalog stuff, but there were some really key points in there that when you're able to refer back to this deck in the future, I think will be very useful as you go through and try to select a catalog. Now we shift to, if you already have a catalog, or what are you going to do after you get the catalog to ensure that people are using it? Because that stickiness of adoption is one of the areas that we see a lot of our clients are challenged by. So what we've done, we've leveraged research that's out there. Our approach when we look at catalog adoption is looking at behavioral research, and there's something called the unified theory of acceptance and use of technology. There are a number of studies that are out there, but this framework really validates how people will use your technology and stick with it. So some of it, I admit, like we look at the first one, perceived usefulness, is kind of like they did the study. People who smile a lot are happier than people who don't. That you got to imagine that a catalog where people perceive it as useful, that's going to be a pretty key thing when it comes to adoption. But this gets back to the use case stuff that Chad was referring to earlier. It is really important. We do see places that go, yes, we want to warn you as a data governance area in your organization against the catalog validates what we do and what we are. You need to really go out and meet with different areas of the business and get those use cases to ensure that when you bring that catalog in, the usefulness of it is high. I'm going to gloss over this because we got a little more detail in each of those. The second area is that perceived effort. So it goes without saying, if it takes 12 clicks for me to find what I want to find, my brain is probably going to go, yeah, I know where that is, but I'm not going to go through the effort of doing that. So we need to make the effort pretty straightforward and simple. And then the third one is trust and confidence. So clearly in a catalog, which is meant to give us guidance and give us some faith as to what terms mean and where things come from and the quality of the information we're looking at, it goes without saying that whatever you have in your catalog needs to be high trust and confidence. And then the fourth thing that makes this thing sticky is culture. So I'll talk more about that in the actual slides. Chad, let's see one of those memes. Here we go. Perceived usefulness is arguably the number one driver of adoption. So if the different areas of your business, Chad alluded to earlier, It's a good idea to have your data governance framework, not just the document, but how it is operationalized through the organization, your owners, your stewards, have that in place so that when you're bringing in the catalog, it aligns both, you're able to put the owners on the different elements in the catalog, but also so that you have spoken to these people and gotten a sense of how it can make their lives easier. Sense check, does the catalog solve real problems for teams? Chad made a comment earlier in the selecting is like, who are we selecting this catalog for? And I think that's another thing you want to be absolutely clear on in those early phases. And if you already have one, then maybe it's time to revisit it, because oftentimes we hear going into organizations, it's for the business, it's for an internal data and tech team. And the reality is usually somewhere either in between or fully lopsided one way or the other. But if we go in and create a business case going, everyone's going to use this thing, and then it gets into implementation and we find we can't up the usefulness for certain areas of the business, that's not going to happen. And if I'm honest, it's probably is what happens the most is that uptake across the business isn't there, largely because this driver of adoption around usefulness hasn't been clearly thought out and I guess actioned. What else? I'm going to jump down to some tips. So again, solve problems people actually care about. And here's the thing, it's going to be different across organizations. So this is getting back to, you got to put in the time to understand the business and what matters to them. The glossary terms in high use dashboards is a great tip. So when people are actually in their dashboards and their key things where they're trying to understand, well, what is customer or member or this value, what does that come from, to be able to highlight that and give clarification, that certainly can help with some of the stickiness and value around this. And then that last one is a bit of configuration. And we aren't human-centered in general, human-centered designers and UX designers, but these are the sorts of considerations that we need to have if things are going to be sticky. If everyone has the same generic page that they go to in a catalog, it probably isn't built for them, and they're probably not going to perceive its usefulness. So something to consider. Next, thank you. That second point on perceived effort, that's the silent killer of adoption. So if your catalog is slow or the interface is not intuitive, if it takes 12 clicks to get to where someone needs to go, then they're going to go, the effort is too much. And again, we've seen it. We've got the sense check here is, can people find what they're looking for in under a minute? Sometimes a minute's even too long. Is the catalog intuitive and easy to use, which I already addressed. Do new users, how do we onboard people? And that's the other thing that we forget as well. We kind of get a catalog and get it in, but the organization is constantly people in and out. And so when we get new people, how do we make sure that they get on the tool and it's adding value and that it's easy? So some onboarding and training is quite useful. Just due to time, Chad, I think we'll jump to the next one. I got a couple more slides to get through in the waning minutes here. Trust and confidence is the foundation of any catalog. And so here, I'll make one big tip here. I think a lot of places think it's our data catalog, and so we need to have everything in it. And maybe that makes sense from the outside when you're starting this, but what we are seeing all too often is data catalogs are turning into data swamps. And so there's so much in there. We had a client that we worked with where they said they looked for one particular term, customer, and 100 items popped up. And so it get back to both trust, confidence, and the effort. The users were saying, I don't know which customer item is useful to me. And so they could have classified more, they could have curated probably a little bit better. But what happened is people going, I come to the catalog and there's just so much there. I don't know what actually answers the question that I have. We believe more in being very specific in what you're curating and curate from a business lens so that what you're creating is trusted and the people who want to use it have high confidence. Dumping everything in is rife with not necessarily getting it right, not necessarily having high quality information. We see things where they're not fully populated. So there's certain assets, and then people start going, it doesn't have the answer to the question that I'm asking. So that trust and confidence is a big one. I would argue in some instances, it might make sense to clean things out and start over in certain areas, but certainly cut back to the people who are using it and the value, and then spread out from there. Next one, Chad. And then culture. I love, you all may have heard of Tiny Habits, a guy named BJ Fogg. So I think he was at the Stanford Technology Influence Lab, something like that, but effectively did all these studies on how to increase people's use of technology. And then ultimately they stopped sharing it because the big companies used it to be overly successful, and now have turned us into little zombies where we're tracking our little videos all the time. However, from a cultural perspective, it's a key thing. If we can embed in people's standards, habits at work, what do they do? What are they using on a regular basis? And how do the use cases that we've identified give them value? How do we habit stack? How do we take what they're used to doing and make catalog value in searching or finding something in the catalog, something that's actually useful to them? How do we get certain teams going to this as the source of truth, because there's trust and confidence in it? And so when a new member comes on to the team and they go, where's this? The rest of the team go, oh, this is how we do things, and they're automatically taking it. We've got celebrate wins in terms of tips and tricks. Make it fun. Chad, you might have some more tips on how to make it fun, because I haven't solved that problem yet. These 4 things in terms of perceived value, perceived effort, confidence in the tool, and then culture. How do we embed it in our culture? They're pretty important in terms of keeping a catalog sticky and ongoing usage without a lot of effort. We've got a final slide here. I think I'll pass over to you, Chad, in terms of key lessons learned.
Yep, and so I guess we're time, so just wrapping up with key learning. So the number one there is don't start with the tool, start with your problems. We've covered that. It's really important to solve real problems with your catalog. Number 2 is try build your catalog into existing process. I can't tell you how important that is, or whether it's the projects or SDLC. Make sure you embed it in as part of that. 3 is start small and focus on the new stuff, or focus on the most popular stuff. You want to make it as valuable as possible as soon as possible. And 4, as Tim said, kind of make it fun. Now, data governance can be a bit boring. We've got to bring energy to this, to DG. We've got to make things fun. We're going to celebrate wins. We had a mascot where I was working for our catalog. We had colors with it, and we celebrated wins. So the people who were curating the most or contributing to the most of the catalog, we rewarded that, and I think it's great to do that. And also the constant communication. It's good to communicate, share wins with the catalog, and talk about and constantly improve it. And so conscious we're at time, so that's my lessons learned. We'll end today with just saying thank you. We had a heaps of people registered to this. I think we got about 46 on the call, which is just fantastic. I hope you've got something out of it today. And so to say at the end, we've done a lot of work with catalogs, helping clients. We've also done a big review of most of the catalogs in that list. So we know the good ones, we know the bad ones. And so if you're implementing a catalog, you're on that journey, or you're struggling with adoption, feel free to reach out to us. The QR code there, you book in a coffee, have a chat, and we can tell you or share what we've done with our clients. Excellent. We don't have any time for questions, but yeah, thank you everyone for joining today, and we'll see you at the next one. Thank you.
Thank you.